The NFL draft is quickly approaching, and with that comes rankings, mock drafts, big boards, and everything in between. In today's video, we are going to be discussing the top 5 receivers in the 2023 NFL draft in reverse order. So we will start with number 5 and work our way to number 1. And what has to especially be remembered for the top 5 receivers is a team's top 5 receivers may be completely different than the order in today's video. For example, the Chargers probably would not draft Quentin Johnston out of TCU because they already have a big-bodied receiver and a good one at that on their roster in Mike Williams. So everyone's rankings are going to be a tad different, and that's okay, but with that preface out of the way, let's begin. And we are starting today's video with Jalin Hyatt from Tennessee. Jalin exploded onto the scene in 2022 as he was a perennial deep threat and finished the year with over 1,250 yards and 15 receiving touchdowns. With some players, and I'm not looking at anyone in particular when I say this, although it can apply as it always applies to somebody, but some players really juice their raw numbers up against bad teams. For example, Tennessee played teams like Ball State and Akron in 2022, and Jalin had just 2 catches for 28 yards against Ball State, and had 5 catches for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns against Akron. If this was his biggest game, I might be a little concerned, but if you know anything about Jalin Hyatt and how Tennessee's season went in 2022, you know about the upset they had over Alabama in a game where Hyatt went for over 200 yards and not 1, not 2, not 3, but 5 receiving touchdowns. There are some weaknesses to his game, or flaw, and what a lot of people point to, especially with Hyatt, is how light he is and how the system made him look good at Tennessee. And I don't think that's a big concern for a few reasons. We're in 2023, meaning coaches utilize players to the best of their ability, or at least good coaches do, and manufacturing him touches, whether it's on jet sweeps, screens, or go balls like we saw him do time after time at Tennessee, is his bread and butter. Is Jalin going to be Davante Adams as a route runner? No, and hardly anyone is, but that's fine. I think a lot of the time in scouting, people focus too much on weaknesses, and in Jalin's case, it's because he both wasn't asked to and didn't have to because he was tearing it up as it was. That's also not to say I think he can become an elite route runner, because I don't, but I think he is being entirely overthought, and drops were not a big concern for him as he had a drop rate of just 6.9%, nice, during his final year at Tennessee. For reference, Jalen Waddle, a player whose style isn't too far off from what will be asked of Hyatt in the NFL, had a drop rate of 8% and 10.3% in his first 2 NFL seasons. And when Hyatt is on the field, he has to be accounted for, and if he's not, well, look at the Alabama game for reference. I don't care that he ran a 4.440, which for him I do think was a little slower than what we saw on tape, but a 4.4 is still fast, and we have the tape to back up that nobody is catching Jalin if he gets in the open field. I would love for him to go to the Chargers and have a trio of Hyatt, Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams in the remaining year of Justin Herbert's rookie deal. Hyatt is a unique weapon on the offensive side of the ball, and if utilized correctly, he can be a very, very good player for years to come, and I hope 2022 was just the start of what we see for Jalin Hyatt. Jordan Addison is up, and sprinkled in his part of the video will be footage from him both at USC and Pitt. And with Addison, like with a lot of receivers in this class, I think he is a good prospect and not a great prospect, which is fine because he can go in and help several NFL teams immediately. He is a good route runner, but given he is hovering around 175 pounds, he can get bullied, which can definitely hinder his game. I don't think he'll ever be a number 1 receiver at the NFL level, but I do think he could be a very good complementary receiver and a player who finds the soft spot in zones at key times and can move the sticks. In 2021, during both his and now Steelers quarterback Kenny Pickett's final year at Pitt, 65 of his 100 receptions went for first downs as he was on his way to a 1,593-yard, 17-touchdown season, as well as winning the Biletnikoff Award. And one big difference between Addison's sophomore season at Pitt and his junior season at USC was the contested catch rate. He caught 15 of 27 contested catches for a rate of 55.6% in 2021, which is a phenomenal number for a 5'10", 175-pound receiver, compared to just 2 of 9 in 2022 for a rate of 22.2%. Obviously, Addison's role at the NFL level isn't going to be a jump ball specialist, but it is worth noting just how big of a difference there was between the 2 years. In terms of a landing spot, I would love for him to go to a team like Minnesota, and will they draft him is of course something else entirely, but the point is he would not be forced into a situation where he has to be the #1 guy right out of the gate. Because if he is, I worry for Addison because of being the defense's main focus, and I think he would struggle at the NFL level. Landing spot is always discussed with quarterback prospects, but it is every bit as important for receivers too. Addison projects as a good #2 receiver and a player who will move the sticks and keep the offense moving. Addison won't be a flashy guy, but he will get the job done at the NFL level, and he comes in at #4. From 2 smaller receivers to the big fella from TCU, and it is time to discuss Quentin Johnston. There are a lot of polarizing prospects in the 2023 NFL Draft, and Quentin is certainly one of them. I think Quentin can become a good receiver at the NFL level if he is used properly. And what also has to be remembered when discussing this wide receiver class is this is not the class of 2022 and certainly not 2021 or 2020. So coming in at #3 in this class is very different than the past few years, and unlike last year when we had a top 3 or even top 4, and in no order, of Drake London, Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Jamison Williams, Quentin to me at least would have been #5, at minimum that is. And because people see a 6'3", 210-pound receiver, there's this assumption that he will be this Mike Evans big-bodied type receiver when there is a ginormous size difference between those two and their playstyles are vastly different. We mentioned drop rate earlier with Jalin Hyatt, who had a drop rate of just 6.9%, which is fine, by the way, but Johnston's was at 11.8%, which is definitely concerning. And with Quentin, which this generally happens when there is a height, weight, speed prospect like him, expectations go through the roof and people get enamored with what a player could be. And at the NFL level, I think Quentin will be a good wide receiver too, which isn't a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. Think back to 2019 for a second when DK Metcalf was scrutinized for his 3-cone and short shuttle time, and since then he's been a good player because the Seahawks have focused on what he can do, and that's going to be the big thing with Quentin at the next level, is having a team focus on what he can do and not have him try to be a player that he's simply not. There's seemingly a negative connotation to a system player, but I don't think there should be, because maximizing what a player can do is on coaching. What's concerning for Quentin is he caught just 56% of his targets between 0 and 9 yards last year, while Jalin Hyatt caught 90.6% of his targets in this area of the field. And if Quentin is going to be successful at the NFL level, like he can be, he has to get better at doing the little things right. I like Quentin, I just think there is a lot more risk to his game than people either realize or are acknowledging, and he comes in today's video at #3. Next up is a player from the ACC, and it is Zay Flowers from Boston College. Like we've said with really all the receivers today, the thing that matters most for these guys is not only where they land, but the role they are expected to have from day one. Zay is 5'9" and a fourth, which ranks in the 8th percentile of heights for a receiver, and his weight of 182 pounds ranks in the 10th percentile. His wingspan of 72 and a fourth inches is in the 9th percentile, and while he ran a 4.42 40, which isn't slow by any means, as that ranks in the 82nd percentile for receivers, his play speed is where he makes his money. I cannot emphasize enough how much I love Zay's route running ability, and how I think that translates to the next level. And not only is Zay a good route runner, but specifically within the routes, there's something Zay does that not every receiver can or does, and it's very advantageous to his profile as a draft prospect. When he's making a cut, he doesn't slow down, and from a pure movement standpoint, he reminds me of what Bijan Robinson does as a running back, who is the best running back in the class. Zay obviously isn't on his level as a receiver prospect as Bijan is as a running back prospect, but the point is there's no lost time between cuts. And at the NFL level, where time is critical, with Zay you don't have to worry about him getting to a spot in time because he'll be there. I think there's a handful of NFL players that probably wouldn't test great in the pre-draft process, but they're good football players because they not only get it, they know any and everything about their role, meaning they do the homework and then some before they take the field. And I think Zay is a very high floor player, and if he's not in a bottom 3 passing offense like the Atlanta Falcons were, for example, in 2022, who had Kyle Pitts go for less than 400 receiving yards despite being a one-of-one player, Zay should at minimum be around 1,000 yards every single season. He can get open, he's a handful for corners, and he is a good football player. The one knock on Zay is he drops the ball a little more than you'd like to see, and obviously that's the most important part of his job at the next level, but it's not an overwhelming amount to where he will become a bust because he simply can't catch the football. He's a good receiver and should be a first-round pick. From Boston to Columbus, Ohio, we go to discuss Jackson Smith-Njigba. JSN, like Zay Flowers, plays to his game speed on every single play, meaning these two do not lose speed throughout the route, which enhances how good they are as receiver prospects. We've mentioned drop rate with every receiver in today's video, and it favors Jackson in a big way because of how little he drops the football. During his insane 2021 season, in which he went for over 1,600 yards, he dropped the ball at a rate of just 5.9%, and while he had only 10 catches during the 2020 season and 4 catches during the 2022 season, he had 0 drops in either year, bringing his overall drop percentage down to just 5.2% during his collegiate career. There's times where players alligator arm passes across the middle because they're about to get drilled by a defensive player, and they know they're about to get drilled by a defensive player, but JSN is pretty fearless when going across the middle, which is only a positive for NFL teams. I think Jackson is going to be a very good receiver at the NFL level, and for some time at that, assuming he stays healthy, but the one big knock on his draft profile is he's not a burner at receiver, and to that I say, who cares? His 3-cone time was a 6.57, and his 20-yard shuttle was a 3.93, which ranked in the 96th and 97th percentile for receivers. Sure, you can say his 40 time of 4.48 to 4.52 isn't the fastest, and it's not, but the big thing for JSN was having it not be in the 4.6s. And it wasn't. And if he is so damn agile and as good of a route runner as he is, and as fearless going across the middle as he is, the 40 time in a lot of ways is overrated. Yes, it obviously means something, but there is far too much emphasis placed on whether a guy runs a 4.39 versus a 4.41, and there's this belief or mindset, well, that's just not going to cut it, and that could not be further from the truth. If the team Jackson gets drafted by is ignorant and does not play to his strengths and has him run go ball after go ball while not giving him any digs, slants, quick outs, or anything to keep a DB guessing, then that's on them, and they should be fired for not utilizing or maximizing what they can get out of a player they selected in the first round. Are you ever going to confuse Jackson's highlights with Tyreek Hill's? No, obviously not, but JSN is a very good football player, and I wanted to include this, and it's been talked about a lot within the draft process for him, so you may already know this, but current NFL receivers Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, aka Jackson's former teammates at Ohio State, were asked, who's the best receiver between you three, and without hesitation, they both said Jackson. Now, players' words in scouting doesn't automatically mean they're right, but for two players that each went for over 1,000 yards in their rookie season in the NFL, and in Garrett's case, won the Offensive Rookie of the Year, this goes a long way. Jackson could very easily go for 1,000 yards in 2023, and he should if the offense uses him in the right way. His numbers are eerily similar to Julian Edelman's from an athletic standpoint, and we know the player Julian was for the Patriots for all those years. Jackson's not going to be a player who catches a slant route and takes it 80 to the crib. He's going to be a consistent move-the-chains receiver for the majority of his career, and whatever team drafts him is going to love him for it, and he is the #1 receiver in the 2023 NFL Draft. And that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, as it would mean the world and help the growth of the channel a ton. Until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.